Okay, this is Dan Brock with the Tucson Dowsers in Tucson, Arizona. And this is our general meeting for June 5th, 2021. And our special guest is Heather Wilks from Melbourne, Australia. So I'm going to pass it over to Carol Dickman of Tucson Dowsers. And we're going to have her introduce Heather, and then we'll get into any announcements that anyone has about events that are coming up and things that are happening. So we have a few minutes for that, about 15 minutes. So there it is. So Carol, do you have anything you want to share with us at this point?
I do, and I don't know as you need to record the announcements. So I'll start with the announcements and then it'll be uninterrupted with Heather. But my name is Carol Dickman, and I'm the treasurer of the Tucson Dowsers. I'm sitting in the place of Teresa, who can't be here today, but her introductory talk is always so exciting. So I'm going to quote her that she's excited, or we're all excited about you being here, and that we invite you to be excited as well. Because as Dowsers, we know that this is a really cool thing that we have that has enormous potential. What is fun is that we each have the opportunity to learn all the amazing ways to use dowsing that we may not have even thought about, and to open our minds to become aware of what can be done. And I find that inspiring. This is our 8th Zoom presentation this season, and it just keeps getting better and better. A couple of the announcements I want to make is today's sponsor for our Zoom, and this sponsor allows us to expand beyond 100 participants in the Zoom meeting. So our sponsor for today is Diane Chidlow from Phoenix, Arizona. Thank you, Diane. I don't know if you are here. I haven't seen you come on yet. We thank everybody who's been sending us donations to whatever amount you can. It's so appreciated because it allows us to keep our tech up to date and keeps us going forward. We thank you for your donations. We're grateful. A $50 donation allows us to expand the Zoom capacity of the meeting. And you can donate to the chapter through our secure PayPal website on our PayPal link on the website, our newsletter, or on the announcements that we put out the day or two before the presentation. Our website is tucsondowsers.net. If you prefer to send a check instead of going through PayPal, you can send a check to us made out to the ASD, not to the Tucson Dowsers, because ASD is our parent organization as a nonprofit. The activities that I want to make you aware of, ASD is having their annual conference next week, starting on the 9th for workshops, and then runs the 10th through the 13th in New Hampshire. We're having a Southwest Dowsing Conference in October 6th to the 13th in Flagstaff. And if Susan Spieler is on, do you want to make any announcement regarding the Southwest Dowsing Conference? You can look them up online, but if Susan is here, unmute yourself and give us a little bit of a promotion here. I guess Susan isn't here. Okay. Is there any other activities around the country that are sponsored by other chapters that we need to be aware of so that we can participate? Sabrina, unmute yourself and give us a little update.
Yes, I'm of the Denver Mile High chapter, and we are having at the end of the month, 5th and 6th, Saturday and Sunday, but Saturday we're having in-person, face-to-face, finally, field day, where we have 2 major speakers, and it's all about dowsing, and we have elaborate, we do dowsing for coins or gems, and it's just a fun day altogether, door prices, whatever. Because of this year and the COVID, we have decided not to charge anybody for entry fee. We do have a donation thing if people want to donate, but there's no charge for it this year. That's we going to try to do it Zoom wise, but we're not sure if we are going to be able to do that or not. So, but I will send you guys a flyer with all the information, and if you want to pass it to everybody else, that'll be very, very much appreciated. So that's about it. Thank you. And I do enjoy this group tremendously, even though all this mess is going on. It sure has been fun with the Zoom meeting and getting to meet so many more Dowsers out there. Thank you.
Thanks, Sabrina.
So we
I
have
just want-
Karen Burke, I'm sorry. Berkey. Yes, hello, Karen.
Hi, I can cover the Flagstaff Dowsers meeting as well as our Golden Gate chapter. I just want to announce is on June 19th, 1:15 till about 3 Pacific time. And Sharon Mahaney is the guest speaker. It's a virtual meeting, Dowsing Your Belief Garden. And I put my email up there if you'd like a copy of the notice, which includes her handout. Just send me an email. And the Flagstaff Dowser meeting, I believe, starts the 7th of October and runs through the 11th. There's pre and post tours of Sedona sacred sites and vortexes. And the Dowser School, I believe, is on the 8th. And the conference is 9th to the 11th with, 60 some speakers. And outside activities, which should be a lot of fun. So there's 3 different kinds of accommodations. And I think the website is just Dowsers of flagstaffdowsers.org, but I can check it and put it up in the chat for anybody who doesn't know the dowsing, the website. That's it.
Thanks, Karen.
You're welcome.
I just wanted to announce also the next month's speaker, July speaker, is Cynthia Sue Larson. And the title of her presentation will be What Events Want to Happen Together? Exploration Through Time, Causality, and Consciousness. Now, if that isn't ominous. You can read her bio in our current newsletter, and there'll be more next month announcing her. So thank you. Sandy, do you need to say something?
Yeah, I need to say that after I'll be speaking at the Flagstaff conference, and after the conference, we're going to do a 2 or 3 day experience here at my ranch for people that are local and even the ones that have traveled a distance with Marty Kane, who's going to be coming over from the Appalachia Dowsers. And she was involved with ASD for probably 30 years. We'll be building labyrinths out of petrified wood because my ranch is loaded with them. And also a lot of other activities. She's been dowsing since she was 4 years old. She was taught by her Lithuanian grandfather and she thought everybody in the world did it. But she also sees and works with the hidden kingdoms, the elves, the fairies, the gnomes, and all that kind of stuff. So people will be camping out, staying in the limited accommodation here. We've got fire pits. We'll be doing activities at night. And I'm just about 15 miles south of the Petrified Forest. So there's lots of things around here. And this will be immediately after the ASD conference in October.
Good. Thank you.
Good.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, we have Jeanette with the North Carolina Dowsers has her hand up. So I'm going to ask her to unmute.
This is with Jeanette with North Cal Dowsers here in beautiful Redding, California, nice and warm. And I just want to mention to everybody that there is a free Dowsers video conference that has been going strong for over the last 3 years with ASD and the dowsing chapters. The next one will be June 21st at 5 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time, featuring Jeannie Geringer, and I'll put the details in the chat line. And that's sponsored by the Sherry Hope's Gold Country Dowsers, Susan's Greater Boston Dowsers, and all of us here in Northern California Dowsers and Redding. And thank you so much for featuring Heather Wilks today, everybody. Looking forward to the presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Jeanette. I'm sorry, that said North Carolina, that's Northern California. Excuse me. I'm going to mention real briefly that let's see if I can share this here. Here we go. Next weekend is the Riding the Crest of Change. The ASD is having their annual convention online. This is going to be starting next weekend, 9th through the 13th. So I would love to see everybody go to that event, which is going to be held online. In addition to this, let's see. I'm also going to be doing a presentation at that conference, and I'm also going to be doing a presentation at the Southwest Dowsing Conference. And let's see here if I can get my share up. There we go. So at the ASD conference, which is next week, I'm going to be in room 3 on Saturday the 12th, which is 5 p.m. Eastern time. And I'm going to be doing a presentation on communication with off-world non-humans using a color code and numerical-based dowsing system. And that presentation is going to be a discussion by me about the experience that I had working with a group of English dowsers from Great Britain to do a project in 2019, I believe it was. At the very beginning, actually it was 2020, it was the beginning of the pandemic. And we're going to talk a little bit about that process of communicating and working with the consciousness of non-humans. So we are now at 1:45, and Heather, Carol, I believe, is going to introduce you, and then I'm going to pass it over to Heather to start the meeting unless there is anyone else that has anything to present. There is some information in the chat from the Golden Gate Dowsers. I might suggest that you put your information in the chat window if we haven't gotten to discussing any of your particular things that you want to share with the dowsing group here today. And we are at 104 participants right now.
Wow.
So we've just broke 100. And congratulations on that to Tucson Dowsers. So I'm going to pass it over to Carol, and then we'll be going to Heather as our presenter.
Carol, I have a question real quick. There's on my screen, there's this big thing that blacks out the speaker that says this meeting's been recorded. Is there any way to turn that off or remove it? I mean, we can't see your faces.
Yes, there's a button there that you need to press that says, oh, you're okay with recording. It's just so that the recording, you're aware that we are recording the event.
Okay, so just click on that little button.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I'm not very good computer-wise person. Thank you.
Okay.
It didn't do it.
Hey, it's my pleasure today to introduce Heather Wilks from Melbourne, Australia. She's the vice president of the Society, Victoria Society of Dowsers there. Her presentation, and hopefully you've had a chance to read her bio, which is really interesting. We're going to find out more about that today. But the presentation today is Influencing the Weather with Dowsing. In her presentation, she's going to elaborate on what she learned about working closely with nature spirits in her own country and other places to alleviate serious drought, fires, blizzards, cyclones, and floods. And Lord knows we need to know these things for us in the west of the United States today. Much of what she has learned, she also learned from Raymond Grace, according to her bio. And Raymond Grace's presentation to the Australian Dowsers in 2009 was our first presentation during this Zoom period of the Tucson Dowsers, or this national Zoom period during COVID. So I referenced that so that you can go back and listen to his presentation to them as well. Heather, without any more ado, I'm really anxious to hear what you have to say and share with us today. Good morning again.
Carol. Thank you. Well, I've always had a fascination with weather because where I live in Melbourne, it fluctuates. I mean, they joke about us having 4 seasons in one day, and if you don't like what's happening, wait half an hour. But we had a serious drought in Australia in 2009. And I had said at the Dowsing Society, you know, we must be able to fix it. And they all said, well, what do you suggest? I didn't have a clue. So I was regularly in contact with Raymond anyway, because I was the one responsible for buying his products for the shop at the DSC. So I emailed him and I said, can you help us please? Because, you know, it was really dire for my state in particular. So he emailed back and said he had checked and he found that the nature spirits were missing. Well, and he invited them back. He said that no one has any idea why these things happen, but it happens and it's quite simple. You just invite the nature spirits back. Well, it was a totally new concept to me because I'm from the city. I'm not really a country person. So he suggested I get a group of dowsers organised to douse accordingly on asking for rain. And it started from there because 5 days later it rained, which was phenomenal. I mean, we had lakes that were totally dry and we were able to send him photographs and say, look what's happening. And it was just so exciting. I became totally hooked on weather dowsing. And the first time I posted on Facebook with a protocol and said, one of my dowsing friends said, oh, that's so brave. Well, it hadn't occurred to me that it was brave. It just seemed exciting to me. So from then on, I just kept doing it, and it's always a work in progress. When I first started, because I wasn't familiar with, you know, nature to that degree, I went outside and I whispered to the nature spirits, asking if they could help me because I felt so self-conscious and out of my depth, really. Well, they responded, and I think they knew because it was a genuine request, and that I've just always felt that they're really on side and they've become good friends. And with the actual protocols, they get tweaked a whole lot because the conditions change. One thing I have found is that it seems to work better when you have someone who is actually on the ground in a location, whether they douse or not, but if they actually ask for help, that my dowsing from a distance and others doing the same can help so much more than if it's just done remotely. So it's quite interesting once you get someone involved, and if someone's not a dowser, they can just intend. Dowsing helps, of course, because it gets the conscious mind out of the way and you can really get into the intention. But if someone feels that they want to be involved and don't douse, well, they can just set the intention and ask for help. And as I put into the handout, that happened with a dowsing friend in New York. And he'd sent emails saying how dire it was. And he sent a description of an emergency situation for when the blackouts. And so I was horrified. And I said, no, this can be fixed with dowsing. And of course, I'd never lived through it. He thought it was quite rude, really, and presumptuous. But I put together the protocol about maintaining power, and he worked with other dowsers in New York, and I worked here, and the results were incredible. And I really believe we can say that we made a difference because they were so extreme that the Weather Bureau put out an apology that they'd got it wrong. And that just spurred me on even more. And then when other parts of America, because I've only been very briefly once, and I hadn't at that stage, when I heard that Boston needed, someone was a bit cross with me saying, well, you didn't do anything about Boston. I said, well, just change the protocol, replace New York with Boston. And that's how that all started to unfold as well. And now it's gone on, as you see, that we're quite interested in what happens, not only because of Australia's point of view, but getting involved with Cape Town and what have you. I'm involved with a dowser in Portugal at the moment because there's a region where she lives is particularly drought prone, and it's quite dangerous as they're really full on summer at the moment. So I was working with her to have a little bit of rain, but not enough. And then I emailed Raymond and I said, look, this is what's happening. I'm doing the usual, getting the media out of the way and all the rest of it. And he doubts, and he found that one of the problems was that the trees had been dramatically cut down, and that was somehow affecting the rain. It was as though the spirits of rain, you know, didn't really want to help anymore. So we included that in the protocol, and they've started to have a bit of rain. And I just get excited when he helps in that way, in things that, you know, it's beyond me knowing, but I take everything on board and then we incorporate it and it starts to rain a bit, which is exciting. And someone recently in New South Wales had moved to a really drought-driven area, and she said she was so excited after I sent her a protocol, and she was so excited. Her husband woke up in the night and he said, "What's that?" Because they hadn't heard the sound of rain on the roof. It was just amazing. And last year, I was very excited to be invited by Roxanne Louise, who was then the president of the ASD, to be on a call like this. And because Australia was in very, very bad drought situation, we had it right along the east coast of Australia, the severe drought, then the bushfires, which we call bushfires and you call wildfires. And then the next thing that happened was the flooding, because people got so enthusiastic about asking for rain. What we need to say in beneficial amounts, just to keep some restraint. I think particularly when you've got more than one person dowsing, it becomes so powerful. The floods were as bad as the fires and the drought. And then we had COVID. So we were kicking off to a terrible year, but we were really helped by a group like this, the ASD led by Roxanne, inviting me to come on. And that's how Teresa heard about me to invite me here for this presentation. So she's particularly asked that I do something to help Arizona's situation, because apparently been in drought for 3 years. And you have these problems of the wildfires. And I thought, if you'd like, I've prepared something that's not in the handout because I wasn't quite up to speed on the situation in Arizona. But I've, again, tweaked another protocol to be more specific. So if you'd like me to take you through that with the dowsing, I'm very happy to do that. Is that all right? Yeah. Okay, so I'll just tilt my screen so that you can see the pendulum, and while I read the protocol. So we all have different ways of using a pendulum, but I like to think start your engines, and that's how I get mine going. Then mine goes into my counterclockwise for no, to take up what we don't want. And anything that you think I may have missed as I'm doing this, because it's quite likely to be a bit, please mentally intend it to be added in, because that will work. Scrambling the frequency of the drought affecting all of the areas of Arizona, and all the fears about wildfires, the threats to people, animals, property, and the land. Adjusting the frequency of whatever may block the rain from falling naturally. Releasing all the non-beneficial thought forms, the agendas, any entities involved, media-fed hysteria, and anything else contributing to fear levels and distressing outcomes for the people, animals, and land in the Regency, in the regions. Grounding the effects of mass consciousness on the situations affecting drought and wildfire conditions in Arizona, and neutralizing all the negative effects of humans on the weather and the nature spirits generally. So I'll just let that continue to run. And as I say, add in everything that you believe will be helpful to this situation. just knowing with a number of this large number is going to be really powerful in affecting the weather conditions in Arizona, because it'll be not the number of people, but to the power of the number of people, which I find really exciting. So it'll be a little bit of quietness, but I'm prone to chatting, so I'll keep going. One of the things that Raymond particularly helped me with was bringing in about the media-fed hysteria, because I'm sure it's the same in your region. Here, when there's anything like bad news, it spreads really quickly, and the media pick it up. But it's not just the media; it's also people in shops and people, you know, just chatting amongst themselves. It amplifies that whole problem of, oh, did you hear this is going to happen? And, you know, sure enough, it happens even more badly than was even forecast. I've occasionally been asked and pulled up and someone said, I don't think you've got any right to douse on the weather. You're interfering with nature. Well, I think contrary to that, we're helping nature, because it's the people actually expressing how dire situations are, the media spreading it, that makes it actually compound. So I feel what we can do as dowsers is just balance the books a bit, so that we can actually bring in harmony, which is what I'm going to be doing in the yes direction. But this is going quite strongly and powerfully. So I really believe we will be making a difference from today. And it'll be interesting to see how quickly it happens. I didn't have the luxury of this number of people when I did it with the Dowsers in 2009, and I was only starting out, admittedly, but it's to know that you can have numbers of people who believe and trust in the power of dowsing is such a good thing. So here we go. It's slowing down now. So now I'll go into the yes direction to bring in what we do want. Transforming the energy to the most beneficial, giving thanks to the dowsing system for bringing about increased balance, natural rainfall, harmony and peace, for calmer, more beneficial weather conditions for the people, animals and land. Giving thanks to the spirit of rain for harmonizing the relationship between the land, the trees and the rain across Arizona. Magnifying this dowsing with the help of spiritual dowsers and the skills of the best dowsers on the planet. This or something better is safe and appropriate from now and into the future across all time, dimension, space and reality. That's safe and appropriate. Thank you. I will mention here too that I continue to talk to the nature spirits regularly, and I'm no longer whispering, not by a long shot. I have regular loud conversation. Oh, well, it's one-sided, but I like to think they hear, and I know they do, because things can happen quite dramatically. Just a couple of months ago, we had a particularly bad storm on a Friday night, and it was really, really wild. And we have a large gum tree outside the kitchen window, and it was doubling over, and we'd never seen that before, my husband and I. And I just yelled. I mean, I yelled out so loudly over the rain and the hail to the nature spirits and said, can you just stop this, please? Can you call all hands on deck? And I asked the spirit of rain and hail and wind to calm things down. And you don't know me, but I'm actually a very honest person. It took exactly 5 minutes. Everything stopped. And it was just extraordinary. And my husband's not a dowser, but he has to admit that, you know, something happened. And that night, we heard on the news the next day, 3 people actually died in that storm. So you don't know how much this actually, just talking and asking for what you want very clearly. And I always thank them, and I'm not always yelling, but that was sheer fear on my behalf. And I wasn't even sure that it was going to work myself, because it was so fearful. And it's something that I can always hang on to. I know that we're not just powerless people, we're empowered. talking to those nature spirits, pulling out a pendulum. And I didn't have time to do that night, but I certainly did the next day, clearing up the debris for people. But if we have the courage to actually talk to the nature spirits and say, you know, help, need your help, and the spirit of wind and the spirit of rain and hail, it's so powerful. And I just feel we're not alone. We can just don't have to go into that fear, which is something that is just a wonderful thing. And that then led on to the COVID dowsing, which I'll wait and continue here, because I'd be interested to know if anyone's got other factors they'd like to add into the situation of dowsing for the drought in Arizona. One thing I just would like to add in is to bring in the positive effects of any tree cutting that's gone on, to help the rainfall, to encourage rain, if in fact that's similar to the Portugal situation. It might not be, but just in case it is. Thank you to the dowsing system. I'm indebted to Ram and Grace because it opened a whole new world for me. I learnt yes, no dowsing, and only did that for years, which was fabulous. But then through the Dowsing Society, I came across his materials. And then in 2009 also, when he did that Blueprint for Freedom video, I remember when it was first online, it was before it was pieced together and put back up later. But I remember sitting up one Saturday night and just transcribing it as I went, because it was so exciting what he was intending to do with that sort of dowsing. So everything, I'm just encouraged by what he does. Okay, so that's coming to a stop now. So Carol, can I just ask, is there something particularly that you feel we need to look at as well as that for Arizona?
I don't know in the context that you're using now. I think that not only the severe drought that we're having, but also the subsequent threat of fire. We had a terrible fire last summer that just ravaged the big areas in Arizona. I don't know how you would tie that in with what you're saying. I guess you could tie both of those events up.
Yeah, well, I have actually brought in about the fear of it, because I think that does encourage the fire. But also, once you have the fires, speaking to the nature spirits. And when it's, for example, when it was in Australia, I learned to say, well, I had a prompt to say, could you get your cousins in Queensland and New South Wales onto this? Because, you know, it's beyond, it's the whole of the east coast of Australia. And so I specifically spoke to the nature spirits about that, and trusted and also doused on those fires when they were happening, and again brought in the spirit of rain and for asking for balance and cooperation and reducing the wind. That's something else. When there's a hurricane or anything like that, I often douse to have the wind blow out at sea off the land to reduce the impact on the land, on people and land and animals. So that can be useful too.
See, we have the monsoons coming soon, and part of that, the danger in that is the lightning that accompanies the monsoons, and subsequently the threat of fire with that, as well as the dryness. But you know, the impact of lightning.
And do you have loss of power with those monsoons?
Sometime, yes.
Yeah. So in my handout, you've got that protocol for what I did. Admittedly, that was to do with the blizzard in New York and Boston. But if you have that situation when it's coming, you can use that protocol and adapt it to the Arizona region so that it's quite specific. And obviously it's in a monsoon season, not in a blizzard season. But it's all much the same. It's just taking the language and being really specific about what the needs are at the time. So yeah, I think with dealing with the fire itself, we have the protocol. Sorry, making a noise here. About what I did with the fires, it was adjusting the frequencies of whatever is blocking the rain from falling naturally, and the threats to power supplies, the media-fed hysteria, and then bringing in more beneficial conditions in safe, lower temperatures, natural rainfall, not asking for a lot of rain, just natural rainfall in areas it's needed, and adjusting wind levels for increased safety. And working with the earth and Mother Nature, the nature spirits, the spirit of rain, wind, and the spirit of fire. So I think it's all there if you just, because you're all familiar with Raymond Grace's work anyway, that you understand what we're doing. We're taking out what we don't want and bringing in what we do want. But you just need to tweak your own protocol for the area where you're located. So, you know, if you're north, south, east, or west, it's just really good to be quite specific on that matter. Okay. Is there someone else who might like to add in another comment about Arizona for the drought and the fear of those fires? Karen Burke?
Yes, I'll just mention briefly that Karen Burke said, add California in the Southwest, please.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry, that's a
again,
different person.
Yes. Yeah.
But
yeah.
Please add California and the whole West Coast into the Rocky Mountain areas too.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, we can just do that as an intention in our yes direction. Everything that was just covered for Arizona to bring into these other regions. So California. Where else did you say? Sorry.
It was California and the Southwest.
California and the Southwest. So
Or the
bringing
West
in the
Coast.
power of the West Coast, bringing in the power of dowsing to address those issues that are affecting those exact areas as well, and knowing there are people on the ground there already working with this to amplify for the benefits of the people, the land, the properties, and the animals. So just adjusting, you know, just picking up the pendulum, but you've got the gist of what the approaches I take, and literally applying it then to other regions and being quite specific so that, you know, it works. And you might individually like to check from time to time that the nature spirits are actually present in those areas when things get a bit strong and willing. You can check and see, and if they're not there, you can invite them back using your pendulum in your yes direction, just quite simply inviting back the nature spirits with all the benefits and thank them for returning. So you can see, as a city person, I've embraced the whole thing totally, thanks to Raymond Grace. It's been quite well. So I would say, Karen Burke, that your requests and others for those other regions as having an impact, because when the pendulum swings as clearly and strongly as that, I think that's working. Okay. Thank you. And I'd really be interested in hearing from you. You have the email addresses there on my handout. To hear what happens with your particular area of your droughts, because I'm truly fascinated on how things improve, and I'd love to hear what you did yourself and how things change after particularly a big group like this dowsing together. That would be really good. So, would it be appropriate to go on to the COVID situation now? Yeah.
Yes, please. That's fine.
Okay. I know I was initially asked to just do the, not just, but to work on the weather. I had thought it was such a great opportunity to help with the pandemic because, you know, everywhere is affected. And as you would have known from the handout, that one of my dowsing friends in Melbourne contacted me last March in 2020, and she suggested we go onto Facebook. She's very technically tuned in, so it was good that she knows what to do. And so we've had a little group going with a couple of people from America. We've had more people from time to time, depending. And we've doused most Fridays at 12 noon Australian Eastern Standard Time. And it's not a long session. In fact, we aim to keep it quite short, but it's on the condition that the dowsing itself takes over. So even if I keep the protocols quite short, it's interesting that the dowsing can be so strong that we go over time. So we've stopped restricting time, but it's not half an hour. It's quite, you know, it's quite doable on a day or night. And we've had, as a result, great success with it in Australia. In Victoria, our state was the worst hit at the time. It was still under 1,000 people affected, but it was because everyone was in a panic. They went into a huge lockdown for us. We had 112 days of stage 4 lockdown last year. And bravely, Francis and I kept dowsing with the support of the other people and the people who followed along to the recordings later. We then managed to get down to 73 days without one single case, new case. And we were really so excited. We're really, because it proved that the dowsing does work. I know we're not supposed to say it, but to me, if you're aiming at something, you have to accept that it's working. Anyway, and so after that, that was really exciting. The rest of Australia was doing extremely well. It was just our state. And just soon after that 73 days, we had someone come from interstate who'd been overseas, and it all started off again. The cases, there were about 9 cases, and they shut us down, not to stage 4, but to stage 3. And then last week, the numbers grew to 62 or 63, and we're in stage 3 for another week. So we're hoping with this intended dowsing we've been doing that it will lift. But the whole time we've been dowsing for the rest of the world as well. And we've openly invited people to ask people in different countries to become part of the group or to intend in their own way so that we can spread the value of this dowsing. So I thought I would lead a protocol that I did on Friday, just sort of slightly tweaked as I'm always doing. On Friday, my time, and it was Thursday night in parts of America, when people had joined in. So again, this is a work in progress. I've been doing regular new protocols every week, and this is the latest one with a bit of tweaking again. So going back to the points of origin in our no direction of all aspects of the pandemic to neutralise the detrimental energies, any unfortunate accidents involved, the non-beneficial stories, all the illness, the fear, the greed, the uncertainty and tensions that have developed from the start of the coronavirus. And it gets quite powerful, I must say. It feels so comfortable to speak to a group of dowsers where I can be really open. So often I've got to be cautious about what I say because people don't believe that something as brilliant but simple as this can actually work as powerfully. And yet we all know it can and does. I'm hoping this helps even more in the regions where you are, because the more we can help each other, the better. And bring a complete stop. I have this dream of discovering it's gone, it's over, no longer happening. And I hang on to that in spite of. the evidence to the contrary sometimes. Okay. Alan Handelsman's one who's joined us so regularly, which is great. Ron Zach. And I see Susan Blackburn's on today. She joined us on Friday. So the more people who can join in or watch the replay later, the better, because that will just amplify the dowsing intention. And on the 3 Facebook pages that I provided details for, you can go back, just scroll down, and the ones probably for the whole year are there, and they're all different. Some similarity, obviously, because the fear factor is what is continuing always. So fear always gets mentioned, but there are other variations on it. So just encourage people to do what we can for others in the world as well, because the things that seem to settle down in one area, and then another area you receive information that it's kicked off again. Okay, so slowing down now. Going into my yes direction, transforming the energy to the most beneficial for positive resolutions at the point of origin for this worldwide pandemic, raising our levels of trust to believe that this virus and all of its manifestations can actually end, knowing nothing lasts forever, not even this global crisis. Calling on spiritual healers and influencers, plus leaders from here and other realms to end the crisis. Magnifying this dowsing intention to create experiences of good health and well-being, allowing us to thrive in states of freedom, happiness, and abundance with love and gratitude. This or something better, as safe and appropriate from now and into the future across all time, dimensions, space, and reality for the highest good of all. Again, adding in your own intentions. What you know personally that I don't know, or that may have been covered in weeks before we're meeting today, or months. I just keep thinking, why would it be wonderful when we know that it's truly over against all the things that are being said, that's just come to an end. Okay, my dowsing stop. So going back to Carol and Dan, just like to be guided by you here. Do you have any questions, either of you?
Heather,
Yeah.
there's a lot
ahead.
of there's a lot of questions regarding the protocols or the handouts. The PDFs or the protocol to download was sent out yesterday to the same list of people that would have gotten the newsletter. However, if some of our attendees here today are through other chapters and they aren't directly part of our newsletter list, they wouldn't have gotten it. However, what I'll do is have Kathleen, when we send out the recording with the next newsletter, we'll update download and update any of your protocols that you add. We'll expand it. So that might be some of the confusion that some of the people are asking about. Where are the handouts? They might not have gotten them sent out. We sent them out yesterday, but if you aren't on our newsletter list, you wouldn't have gotten it. Okay.
I think they didn't realize that could be a problem, but it'll be clear when you have the handout. And
Yeah.
hopefully I've made it clear with my dowsing and speaking out loudly about the intention. I hope that's clarified a few things too.
And Dan, just you put up the Tucson Dowsers connection, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
I did. I just put that up there in the chat. So there's a link to the Tucson Dowsers website email sign up. So if you sign up for the email there, you will be automatically added to the email distribution, and you'll be able to get whatever comes from Tucson Dowsers in terms of an email notification, including the list of events that we've had and the links to the videos.
Thank you, Dan.
Okay.
Links to the videos. What about the protocol PDFs? The one that was sent out yesterday doesn't seem to have all of what what's been gone over today. So
Can I just explain that? Because when I realized about the drought conditions in Arizona, today got up early to put together something specifically for Arizona. I will provide that. It's not in the handout, but I'll provide that to the Tucson Dowsers separately. And also the latest protocol for Friday, my Friday, the US is Thursday, COVID. I'll provide that as well, because it's a very fluid situation. I'm a writer anyway, so I just like to keep things current and change it. So I'm sorry if it caused confusion. I was actually trying to clarify, but I might have inadvertently thrown a spanner in the works. That wasn't intended.
Well,
And-
Heather, we'll just update. Anything that you send, we'll update when we put out the recording,
Okay, great.
you know, next month. Yes, with our
Yeah.
next newsletter.
Okay, well, I'll just send those through then to Teresa Gonzalez and it'll all be organized. But yeah, no, I was just trying to be really up to date with what was going on, particularly in Arizona for this group.
I'll just say very briefly that there's several people asked some questions about freezes, blizzards, hail effects, flooding from rain on parched grounds that are very dry. And I just wanted to let you say whatever you can about dealing with those kinds of issues with the dowsing approach that you're taking.
I talked to the nature spirits firstly and asked if they could step in and warm things up to the degree that those frozen areas could be melted. I would ask the spirit of the frost and whatever as well, just to cooperate for more balance with nature. Really just like this top of head, but that sort of thing, so that you adjust what you're doing to suit the conditions that are presenting. I've not come across that personally, but I think that would work just as well as working with other areas of it. And the most important thing in doing it is just to ask, I think, from the heart and with trust that you're going to be receiving help, and that what you're intending is for the highest good of all. And that will just encourage it all to work really easily. Is there another question?
Heather, we have about 10 more minutes left for you that's open prior to a designated time for Q&A, but we can open it up at any point that you would like to questions.
I think it probably would be a good idea to do that now, because I've explained what I wanted to cover, and arising out of that, there might be more questions. As Gaia had, that she didn't have the protocols, and I've done a deviation from what I provided. So other people might have questions along those lines as well. I'm happy to answer them.
Okay, and I would encourage everybody to put your questions into the chat or potentially raise your hand, and we'll try to get you into the queue here for Q&A with Heather. And I have a hand raised by Donna Lee Powers. Let me see if I can, if you can unmute yourself there, Donna.
Hi, thank you, Heather, very much. I'm just wondering if there's another aspect or layer to all of this. A dear friend of mine who's very psychic insists that we're actually in the middle of weather wars, whether it's Russia or alien forces. And I'm just wondering if that's something else we need to deal with.
Yes, I generally try to keep politically correct, but so what some of the language that I use will get into factors like spirit of greed, evil, things like that, which I try to do it fairly broadly for both weather and also for the pandemic. The people who have the knowledge, as your people do about that, they will know that that's being covered with the intention without drawing too much attention that could cause aggravation from other people. Diplomacy is not my number one thing. I'm a Sagittarian, but I do my best, particularly when it's so public, you know, and the things I do on Facebook are too public to go into those. We in fact have to be very careful about even saying that what we're dowsing on the Friday. We've stopped saying COVID or pandemic in the written piece, because immediately we get a warning from Facebook that we're to back off. So we just keep it general, and people who know that we're dowsing, we just talk about the world crisis basically. In the actual protocol, I get into those details, and it's good that Facebook doesn't seem to be listening to our recording, so we're getting away with it. We're very politically correct though, because we don't want to be shut down, and we think we can do more good while we're out there. But it's the same, Donnelly, with the weather. I have absolutely no doubt that there are countries with vested interests who are doing things that, you know, we've only got a vague idea about. But if we start specific, we can do it for our own dowsing, but if we start to do it too publicly, something, I think it's probably drawing the wrong attention to what we're doing. So does that help?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Thanks.
And thank you for that question. We have a question from Lindy. Can we douse to mitigate the effects of EMFs? And I'll let you comment on that.
Yes, we can. I don't get into the fear about EMFs because I just use Raymond's work and douse to remove any negatives involved and bring in the positives. I keep it really simple because there's so much fear about all of that, and it's become quite a production thing of people putting out products to do this and do that. Well, I think it's just as simple as picking up a pendulum and clearing the negative energy associated with EMFs and bringing in any benefits. And that sounds naive, I realise, but I also think that the way Raymond does things so simply works because he keeps it simple without going into too much detail. And I just delete the information I get about EMF, so I don't know too much. I don't want to know all the really, really bad things. I want to just deal with it as a whole. And I hope that's an acceptable answer, but that's truly what I do. Is there another question?
We have a comment from Ginny Fojik. This is such a great reminder that our intention is our best and strongest tool. So maybe you want to just say a little bit about intention and how it figures into the work that you do.
It's all about intention. That's all it is. And our dowsing tools, I believe, have absolutely no power at all, but they focus our intention. So we can pick up anything and anything that is appropriate to douse with. For example, when I was teaching dowsing in live classes, I used to go to the local $2 shop and buy up all the dog whistles and put them on a piece of string and take them to my classes for those who didn't have a pendulum. And it would serve to show people how simple it is, but also that there is no power, that it's intention, all of it's intention. And the more clear we are on that, the better. And using the dowsing instrument, particularly with the pendulum, as I do, it gives the conscious mind something to think, oh, well, something's really happening. And so our conscious mind's not then kicking in and saying, oh, this can't possibly work. And it allows us to get on with the intention and using our dowsing. I think it's all that it is, intention. Some people have intention with prayer. Other things, well, we use it with a dowsing tool. And I think it's everything. Is there another question there?
Do you have any particular protocol for like 5G and cell towers and that sort of thing?
No, again, I just keep it simple, just to take out the non-beneficial energy, any detrimental influences, and allow the pendulum will swing quite some time by just using simple language like that, and then bringing in the positives of protection or peace and love and gratitude, harmony, balance, all of that sort of thing. And I think it's good for people to do it when they feel drawn to doing it, but not to feel they have to do it every day, because then it can become fear-driven. I think that the more we trust that what we're doing is amplified and protecting and helping us, the better.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. I've got a question here from Lou. What kind of results have you seen in harmonizing issues of fear people have surrounding COVID and the necessity of getting vaccinated? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, it's always the intention to work on that. I have got no proof there that in numbers that you can put up as proof. But I believe with the strong intention, with the dowsing and people going, contributing and adding to it and amplifying it, that we are doing something on some level. And one time I did do a protocol on the vaccines to take out the judgment, or the judgment about the people who are having it and the judgment about the people who are not having it, so that we can take the blame out and make it, it up to the individual, so that if there's a particularly strong feeling among people that it works, that's fine. But for the people who don't believe it works, it's fine too, so that everyone can cooperate in some sort of balance. I think that's really important. I know it's very easy to get it to be on one side, and I've done it myself. But if we can bring about some balance and just to have more acceptance of it's okay for us to have different ideas, and not to be fearful of what's going to happen if this lot has the vaccine and that lot doesn't, I hope that answers it. But yeah, it's a very ticklish subject.
Thank you. Thank you for that information. I have another question here. Are there tips for strengthening our intentions on a daily basis, i.e. daily habits, or just practice dowsing more? There was a comment about that from Sue Trumpfeller about strengthening intentions by writing it down in a present tense. So I just want you to, if you can, maybe comment a little bit more on that.
Well, I always write things down, and that's why I've got all these little books of over the years. I write down the date, I write down who or what I'm dowsing on. I write out just the overall, and then for something like the COVID and like the weather, I actually prepare written tight, full on protocols. But writing down and working absolutely is just so powerful, because it also clears your mind. You know that you're not doing something that's ambiguous, that you really have clarity, so that the dowsing system knows what you're doing. Yes, I'm a great believer in writing things down and then going back and tweaking, the things that work really well, and you go, okay, this could do with a bit more of that. And that's how I go. I'm always doing that. Yeah.
I would put my question in chat if I knew how to do chat. Heather, as Sandy mentioned a little bit earlier, talking about enrolling or enlisting our sky dowsers to help us. Do you have any feelings or thoughts about that? So
You
it's not
mean-
only, the nature spirits that we're asking to help with weather or, our intention. What about people who have passed who are dowser mentors?
Absolutely. I always call in spiritual dowsers, spiritual healers. As you would have heard at the end, magnify it with the help of spiritual dowsers, as well as the skills of the best dowsing knowledge of all time, which covers that as well. Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure their help. And one of the protocols I did today talked about other realms. Absolutely, I think that's very important. Oh, someone has asked if I use maps. I actually don't do much map dowsing except to find sort of perhaps lost animals or things like that. So not so much for the weather, but I suppose you could. But I literally, when it was the east coast of Australia last year, I was imagining right along the east coast, because it's very rare for us to have it as extensive as it was. But otherwise, I would just imagine it being Queensland or Western Australia or wherever. But I don't use a map specifically for that, no. So,
Do you douse for help like in your garden, just to ask Pan or nature, the spirit realm to just, support your new seeds or your garden, especially if a storm's coming, or even if just they're new transplants and newly seeded garden, anything like that, kind of on a mundane, daily sort of level?
I don't think it's mundane, but I have to admit I'm not a gardener. I was one of the reasons, I suppose, that I whispered to the nature spirits, because they would have known full well that I wasn't a gardener. In spite of my best intentions, I have trouble growing even herbs. Although during our 112 days serious stage 4 lockdown, I managed to keep a few more alive than usual, but I'm not the one to ask, Gaia. I'm sorry, I can't help with that. But I'm sure you can do it if you really, I guess it's because I have different interests rather than the garden, and I wish it were otherwise. I mean, that you do it by all means. I have done, it's not mundane, it's good. So is there another one, John? Dan?
Do we have any other questions for Heather? You can put your hand up, unmute yourself and speak, or send it in the chat. And if we don't have any other questions, we're going to go ahead and wind up here in just a few minutes. It is now 2:41.
Hi. Real quick, for the lady that asked about the MF things, as Raymond, I don't know if you have taken any of Raymond class, but one of the things he taught us was to put an invisible water filters. Well, you can do the same thing around the towers. Just go ahead and put a mesh. What do they call it? That's a certain name. It's called a cage something, but just picture a cage made out of, like the chicken wire. Just picture one of those surrounding that, and that would keep the EMF waves from getting through, because it breaks them up. I did that for a school. Some person decided that they can make more money for the school, and they put all these antennas out there, and by doing that kept the children safe. So, and like you asked, intention, whatever intention you have, you can take it forward. And yes, they're messing with our weather with the harp. So, but yeah, I thank you so much, Heather, for all your information. And it's wonderful because we sort of think alike. And yes, you can bring in anybody you want to help you. When I do my dowsing and I don't feel too well, I always ask for assistance with my dowsing, because it's not me dowsing, it's my higher self and the great computer in the sky that helps us, you know. And if you're doubting of what you're asking for, douse on it. Is this exactly what I need to, the words I need to use to get
Yeah.
the program I want,
Yeah.
you know? And I want to thank you really a lot
Thank you.
for getting up so early. 'Cause
Thank you.
and for being here and for all your information and your work. You know, I usually, whenever I want to do something like that, I called in my group of helper, and last time I did that, they kept me up for 5 hours straight during the middle of the night, but they didn't download a wonderful program to protect us against the vaccine that
Yeah,
I
that's great.
passed out to all my friends
Yeah.
for that. So,
And sometimes when I'm in doubt, I'll just ask and ask, am I asking the right questions? Is there more I need to cover? Anything else I've missed? You know, I just as though I'm talking to someone. Yeah.
I get impression of words in my head, and then
Yes.
I take it from there. And if I'm not sure what I'm writing down, I do ask, is this the right word? Because a word in a sentence make a big difference when that program goes out.
Yeah,
It does.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm a words person, so that I'm very conscious of getting the right word, because the nuances can throw things out a little bit too. So yeah, it's great. It's so exciting though. And it's exciting to be in such a large group because, you know, America is such a big country and we're such a small country. So we don't have the numbers who are into dowsing to this degree. We have enthusiastic dowsers, but not the numbers. Yeah.
Well, the United States is not covered by a bunch of dowsers. I feel very gifted and very grateful that I am where I live, because I'm very close to Boulder, Colorado, and Hannah Kroger is the one that brought it here in the area, and she was an amazing, amazing human being. And that's how I met Raymond, because he used to come up every summer here to do classes for us.
Yes, I'll probably never get to meet Raymond, but we've met on Skype, and he finds my accent a bit hard to follow. Never mind.
He's just as wonderful in person as he is on Skype.
Yeah, that was fabulous. Yeah.
Thank you, Sabrina. We're going to go over to Sandy Mack now. Sandy has a comment or a question or something she wants to add. So Sandy, please unmute yourself and come on over to us.
Okay, am I unmuted?
You're good.
Okay, great. Thanks, Heather. Really appreciate all your tips. I'm studied with many people for 30, 40 years doing dowsing. And I'm just wondering from the Australia perspective, if there's anything else that you can speak to in terms of eliminating something negative that may not have actually happened yet. In my particular corner of Northern Arizona, not only do we have the fires and the extreme drought, but we have a situation here that's very dire in terms of fracking. And that is going down into the ground and through the aquifers in many cases, potentially damaging them terribly, because they say they're fracking kind of for oil, but really what they're fracking for is helium. And this particular area where I live, right around the petrified forest, has been deemed the Saudi Arabia of helium on the planet. But they want to put several thousand wells or devices in that is threatening our aquifers and threatening so many other things in this area. And of course, they have no liability if there's any damages and things like that. So just wondering anything else that you could add that would help support that situation. There are several of us working on this and have been working on it, but we're up against the big oil companies, et cetera.
I'd certainly put in the spirit of greed and non-beneficial thought forms, any political influences in that regard. And any strength, even though I use agendas sometimes, because you're actually aware of what's going on, I think it'd be good if you're quite specific about the agendas and related to the spirit of greed. And hopefully, I'd really like to hear if you had some success with doing that, because we've got problems in Queensland with fracking. I haven't become involved in it directly, but I'd be really interested to know how you go and what you do, please.
Right. Well, we're working with dowsing. We're working with intention. I was a good friend of Slim Sperling's as well, and we're working with some of his devices to not only raise awareness about it, but to help mitigate some of the effects and the efforts in that direction. So we're doing as much as we can in this area. I just thought maybe Australia had a few extra magic things.
No, I think what you're doing sounds excellent, but I'd certainly cover the spirit of greed. That's, huge.
Right.
And also the deliberate misleading and the deliberate lies involved, that sort of thing. Because you've got the knowledge of the detail, you can be quite specific about that. And if you write it down and expand it so that you've got all bases covered, I think that'd be really good.
Good. Yeah.
That's amazing, actually. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Pleasure.
So I'm going to give a question here from Sharon that comes through the chat, and then we have one person with their hand up after that. Sharon says, by changing the weather, might you be affecting neighboring areas' weather patterns, or by calling in rain, might you also be calling in flood? So if you can talk about that. Yeah.
No, I'm very careful with the languaging for that. It's always for our highest good, and it's not just for our area where we're dowsing, but it's for the highest good of all. And definitely I'm so aware of the problems of bringing in flood, particularly because it happens in Australia every year, because we have these dreadful droughts, and then everybody gets on the bandwagon and dowses for lots of rain. We need, and they think I'm naive by saying, please don't ask for lots of rain. You want rain in beneficial, safe amounts, in balance. And it's very critical, because when you've got even more than one person doing it, that's why we ended up with shocking floods after fires last year. It was really severe. So absolutely, we need to be cautious in what we say and what we intend.
Okay, our next question is a hand up by Gaia. Did I say that correctly? And unmute yourself, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to add something about Michelle Smallwright of Paralandra that was inspired by Finhorn. I think a lot of her information is really relevant. She talks about how nature is chomping at the bit to partner with us, and really wants to work with us as partners to help us evolve the whole human experiment. And there's just a lot of what she writes about that is really relevant, and I think is a huge overlap. She mostly emphasizes using kinesiology, but to me, dowsing, there's a great consistency between them. And I just think her work is pretty stunning. I've done some pretty miraculous healings on myself and changed weather patterns, like, to have an event or be able to do something that I wanted to do, or anyway, I just think her work is really consistent. Have you looked at her work at all, Michelle Smallwright of Paralandra?
I haven't looked in detail, no, but I'm absolutely sure that you'd know a lot more than me, and it all help. Yeah, definitely.
Or Finhorn, you're familiar with Finhorn in Scotland?
Yes, I am. Yeah.
Yeah, well, she's the American, and she's taken it way further than Finhorn ever has, in my opinion.
Right. Fascinating. Yeah. Actually, I'll just write that name down because you put it in the chat so that someone else has.
It's in the chat, and I put the her website address. It's perilandra-ltd.com,
Thank you.
but it's in the chat. It's just stunning, from flower essences to energy clearings to health to it's just really comprehensive way to just really partner with nature in a particular way where we have free will and can come up with the seed thoughts, you know, the thought forms that are seeds that go into nature, that gestates them and brings them back. But, and, you know, it's to figure out how to do that partnership. So we're not just manipulating what we want in a way that might not be beneficial.
Yeah. Thank you. I'll look into that. I've just taken a little screenshot of that detail. Thank you.
Mhm.
That's great.
Well, we're getting close to the end of the time period here, and if there are no further questions, I'll leave it to Carol and Heather to conclude the meeting. And thank everyone for being here. Heather, it's been such an amazing pleasure to listen to you talk and present. Your power is undeniable in what you do, and a
Thank you very
tremendous inspiration. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Heather, I just wanted to ask you to review how we can contact you, your website address, your email address, and the title of the book that you've written.
All right. Yes. Thank you. My book is called Dowsing Heals, and my site is dowsingheals.com. So it's quite straightforward, and the contact details are on there. So yes, my book is available as an ebook for $10 US from my site. It's very easy. I'm not sending any of the printed copies overseas at this stage because since we've had this pandemic, the interruption to mail has been horrendous. I had one book that took 2 months to get to America and another one that took 2 months to get to Switzerland. So, I mean, of course, it's just not suitable for anyone. So I'm not sending out printed copies, but the ebook is easily available for download, and you can print that out. I've got easy printing instructions on the site because there are many scripted protocols there that are far easier to dowse along with if you actually have them in front of you rather than on a screen. Well, that's my feeling about it. So yes, so it's my email is heather@dowsingheals.com. So it's DOWSERSHEALS.com. Dowsing Heals. Thank you. And I'm very privileged that Raymond Grace co-wrote the foreword to the book, which is very exciting. He's a great encourager.
The book is great.
Thank you.
Well, I think that is going to be it for today. And thank all of you so much for being here and being part of this experience. It's been absolutely wonderful. This is the Tucson Dowser General Meeting for Saturday, June 5th. And you've been listening to Heather Wilks. And we are so proud that Heather came out and joined us today. And I want to thank you all very, very much.
Thank you very much. It was wonderful to be invited. I was really delighted. Thank you. Great to be here.